Is Cadillac CT4 American version E90? When talking about new cars nowadays, it's either about high technology or intelligence, autonomous driving, or some chatbot. But the Cadillac CT4's appeal is completely different. A longitudinally mounted engine, rear-wheel drive, 50-50 weight distribution, short wheelbase, wide track. These are the truly captivating terms for speed enthusiasts. In an era where cars are swelling up like steamed buns, the CT4 is an anomaly. Compare it to the hardcore BMW 3 Series from the E90 era, and you'll see how pure this thing is. The BMW E90 325 has a wheelbase of 2760mm and weighs 535 kilograms. The Cadillac CT4 has a wheelbase of 2775mm and also weighs 1535 kilograms. Isn't this just like the original E90? Additionally, the CT4, being a modern car, has two advantages over the E90. A wider track, on average 3 to 4 centimeters wider than the E90, and a modern turbocharged engine, 237 horsepower, 100 km per hour acceleration in 7 seconds, compared to the E90 era's 6-cylinder, naturally aspirated 325 with just 218 horsepower. However, today's star is not just the stock CT4, but also a modified CT4. Let me introduce this modified CT4, the real star of this episode. The power uses the official V1 plus V2 program with 270 horsepower. The tires were upgraded from the original Continental run flat to RE03. The transmission system upgraded to AC Gear's Torsen-style LSD with a lock upgrade of up to 80%. The brake system uses AP 8530, 4-piston calipers, AP discs, and disclose EP. So, how much difference is there in lap times between the stock CT4 and the modified one? Let's find out. Go! The stock CT4 clocked 1 minute 02.5 seconds. Considering the poor tire grip, this is an excellent performance, showing the car's strong chassis capabilities. However, this car heavily relies on trail braking skill, meaning you need to balance its front and rear axles well to steer it smoothly into the corner, especially with such poor tire performance. The modified CT4's performance, however, was quite poor. Welcome to Keyboard Insights. The difference of lap times between the two cars is not significant. Many might say the car owner has spent so much money on modifications without much improvement, but the reason is due to the high lockup rate of the LSD not matching the current tires. You can see in the T6 and T7 high-speed corners, even a slight throttle makes the rear slide. This is unusual for a rear-wheel drive car with over 200 horsepower, as normally you wouldn't dare to throttle hard in high-speed corners with a car having 500 or 600 horsepower. In lower horsepower cars, there isn't much torque on the rear wheels in high-speed corners, so you don't need to be overly cautious with the throttle. But this car is different. The throttle needs to be applied very, very late, especially at low speeds. A slight touch and it slides, even in high-speed corners, due to its high lockup rate and poor tire grip. The owner mentioned the LSD's lockup rate is 80%, and once it locks, the differential speed between the two wheels is limited, causing the car to drift, somewhat like a drift car. So how to solve this problem? First, change to better grip tires like AR1, which would suit this high lockup rate because of their good grip, preventing drifting. Or don't install such a high lockup rate LSD. A factory like LSD, like in the CT5, is okay for factory tires. High lockup rate modifications require very good tires. This shows that modification is not just about stacking parts. It's not like change A, gain 0.5 seconds, change B, gain 1 second, change C, gain 2 seconds. You need to consider the balance between different modifications. If you change A and not B, it might even be slower. It's not like playing a game or Need for Speed. In the real world, spending more money doesn't necessarily make your car faster. After discussing the modified CT4, let's talk about the factory model. I gave it a subjective driving score of A. What I particularly like about it is its chassis, especially its unparalleled balance when entering a turn. With trail braking into a turn, you can even perform some drifts without countersteering, just going straight into the drift. This feels incredibly good, very smooth. The transition from drifting to grip and from grip to drifting is excellent. Much better than the ATS. The ATS's transition is very stiff, but the CT4 is very smooth. This reminds me of my old BMW 328i from the F30 era, which felt great. Secondly, its wheelbase and weight. The wheelbase is quite short, and the weight is relatively light, comparable to the BMW 3 Series from the E90 era. In this era where cars are getting bigger and bigger, Cadillac is still making a compact sports sedan. I think Cadillac really pleases those old-school drivers who prefer front-engine rear-wheel drive and longitudinally mounted engines. The driving experience is indeed quite good. Thirdly, it's front-engine rear-wheel drive. While other cars focus on high technology and large smart screens, the CT4 still uses this very primitive way to please drivers. Front-engine, rear-wheel drive, 50-50. Think about these wonderful terms, right? Even without driving, they feel great. Look at its competitors like Audi A3, BMW 1 Series, and Mercedes A-Class, all of which are small front-wheel drive cars with transversely mounted platforms. How can they compare to front-engine, rear-wheel drive? The driving experience is not on the same level. Next, let's talk about its shortcomings. The first is the transmission. The transmission is not very smart in normal driving, certainly not comparable to the BMW 3 Series. Yes, and its manual mode is really slow, almost like it's not there, but this car is not bad on the track because it has an aggressive mode. Once it enters this aggressive mode, it tries to downshift for you. Even if it's not very fast, it can still downshift. It keeps a higher RPM, and you can see the transmission downshifting for me during heavy braking, which feels great on the track. But in daily driving, especially in manual mode, it's pretty slow. Next, let's talk about steering feel. Actually, the steering feel is not a shortcoming. It's quite good among its peers, above average. It's just a bit inferior compared to the BMW, especially the E90 era BMW. But then again, considering the price, it's much cheaper than the BMW 3 Series in China. Under these circumstances, I don't think these two issues are a problem at all. I really like this car. Now let's talk about its modifications. If I were to buy a car like this, what would I modify? First would be the tires. The factory tires are really for grocery shopping. You might want to switch to something like PS4S, similar to the CT5. I think its lap time could be similar to the CT5, and even the driving experience might be better than the CT5, so tires definitely need to be changed. Then the suspension. The suspension is a bit soft. You can see how stable it is when I go over the shoulder at T7 corner without any bumpiness, just absorbing the impact. But for a sports car, it might be a bit too comfortable for me. I would prefer it to be tighter, so I might change the shock absorbers. As for the LSD, I think modifying it would be fun, but after modification, you can only use better grip tires for a good track performance. So these are the few things that probably need to be changed. Actually, its modification idea is correct. There's no big problem. Okay, that's it for this episode. Don't forget to like to support the channel. And if you like track content, please subscribe. See you next time.